Hey everybody, it's Chris with Life 180. In today's video, I want to talk to you about the concept of average rate of return versus actual rate of return. This is a big passion statement for me because I'm a big believer that we need to understand the what, the why, and the how behind our financial strategies. It's one of the big reasons that I'm a huge believer that whole life is better than index universal life, because we need to be able to manage all the moving parts in our financial strategies. We need to be able to take a look at all the different components in our financial system to decide if what we're doing is going to get us where we want to go on a predictable, if not guaranteed basis. And the reality is, I think one of the biggest lies is the whole concept of buying and holding and waiting, because if you look at things like the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones, like these financial advisors will tell you that, listen, you can buy, you can hold, the market's going to have big years, it's going to have down years, but at the end of the day, the market's going to average about 8%, right? I think most people kind of hear that and they say, okay, so I'm going to buy and hold, I'm going to wait it out. You don't want to liquidate a negatively performing asset, which, okay, that's good, and there's other ways to deal with that. But at the end of the day, if you were to model out your portfolio, I think it's important to understand how do losses impact what's going on. And one of the things with IULs is people say, well, you have downside protection. Well, you have downside protection, but at the same time, in negative years, you still have insurance charges and fees and administration costs and all those things inside of the policies that are going to impact the cash value. And if you have multiple years in those in a row, not to mention all the fees that can change, loan rate changes, increases and hikes, cap rate reductions, all these different things that come into play. So let's stay on task here though. When it comes to the average rate of return, I want to actually walk into through a description here, or through an example in a software tool to kind of walk you through what this looks like. All right, so this is a fantastic calculator when it comes to the average versus actual rate of return and understanding how money works, how growth, how compounding works, and where losses impact your actual long-term rate of return. Because I'm a big believer we can prepare for anything we expect. That's one of my biggest problems. I don't believe there are bad products in the industry. I believe there are bad expectations and bad sales tactics around products. So you need to make sure that not only does the product fit your needs, but the expectations around said product meet your needs. That's one of my biggest problems with mutual funds and different managed money accounts. It's my biggest problem with IULs. All these different things is understanding how the actual versus average rate of return works. So let's get into this. I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible. So let's just say we started, I'm going to use round numbers here just for sake. Let's say we started with a $100,000 balance and you have that to save. And let's say year one, you get a 10% rate of return. So you can see here that you gained $10,000, and we're assuming this isn't a tax deferred vehicle or some kind of tax beneficial vehicle where you're not going to have to pay short-term capital gains or anything like that. We're just going to keep it really simple. Obviously, it becomes a little more complicated when you bring taxes into the equation, but the principle across all the accounts, is what it is. So that's year one. Now year two, let's say year two, you have another 15% return, right? So what does that mean? That means you earn now 15% on the 110. That's $16,500. You got your balance up to 126. Then let's just say you earn 8%, you earn 4%. I'm just trying to get the market all over the place here. We earn 9.46%, we'll say. You earn, 12%, right? So now what does it look like? It looks like things are really good because you have an average rate of return, you can see down here in the bottom left, of 9.77%, which is fantastic. We've had a really strong run here, right? The market up 10, up 15, 8, 4, 9.6, and 12. That would be, by any estimation, a really good performance for a 6 to 7 year period of the stock market, any market, right? That would be good. And you can see the actual rate of return is 74% because your money has gone from 100,000 to 174,000, $412, so it's 74.41%. It's grown by that amount. And so what we're talking about, sorry, my phone just rang. What we're talking about here though is taking a look at what happens when you have losses, because let's face it, we're never gonna have just all the way up, and how losses impact our long-term growth and where it impacts the average versus the actual. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say, let's throw in a negative 10% year. The one negative 10% year drops the average down to 6.94. And let's say we have another year that's a negative 8%. So not two hugely bad years. We didn't have any big negative 20% year or negative 15 or 20 or even negative 30 or 35% year, which have happened multiple times over the past couple decades. And so we didn't do that. We just dropped in 2 negative years over an 8-year period after a good 6-year run, which is pretty standard. And it dropped the average rate of return to 5.07. However, look at what this does to the actual rate of return. So the actual rate of return dropped because the account value dropped. But now let's say we have another good 2 years to end out the decade. Let's say it goes back up 15% and it looks good. And let's say then it goes back up 8%, right? So here's the deal. It looks fantastic. We got an average rate of return of 6.3. And by the way, look at this. I don't think hitting 8% in the economy that we're in right now long-term is even realistic at this point in time. 6.3% seems pretty on the money. However, here's the deal. The actual rate of return, we're looking at this, you're up to over a decade, $179,000, so you've got 79% actual rate of return. But if I click on this button, what you have here is you have 6.02% is the annualized return. That is the actual annualized return, meaning the average, it doesn't really come into play. They will sell you on the average and how that important, because they're talking about simplifying the modeling of your performance of your account. But when you break it down, if I were to annualize, if I were to say, listen, look at all these numbers, we add them all up, subtract out the negative years, divide it by 10, the average rate of return is 6.36%. So then what they do is they go into a model and say it's going to be up, it's going to be down, but at the end of the day, you're going to have 6.36% average. So let's just build that and model it out. And then you have this linear, nice growth curve in your investments. And it just doesn't work that way. When you break it down, you only have 6.02% annualized return. And when you look at that, I'm gonna actually run a number here really quickly and see what I can do here. 6.02 divided by 6. So that's like literally, it's a 6% reduction, which doesn't seem huge, right? In the performance of the policy or performance of the account, investment account, whatever it is. But when you do that difference over a long period of time, it ends up being a ton of money. And this doesn't even account for fees and expenses and all that stuff. And if you're paying 1.5% managed money fee for this, if you have insurance charges that are going to go up, if you have different variables in a policy, if you're using like an IUL for an alternative to be able to save in, you talk about taxes, if it's not in an IUL or in a whole life policy, if it's in a taxable vehicle, that obviously the 6.03% or 6.36%, you take out taxes, you take out the annualization, the concept of losses and the interrupting of compounding there, how that impacts everything. You talk about managed money fees. The real rate of return on this after all said and done is probably more in the 3% range. And we're living in an environment where, guess what? We just hit 4.2% inflation. So guess what? In order to beat inflation, you really have to be earning, before fees and taxes and expenses, you have to be earning about 7 to 8%. That's insane, guys. That's why I'm so powerfully passionate about the power of leveraging whole life, accessing the money, getting it into financial vehicles and assets that are more of the hard asset nature, that have inflation protections built into the nature of them, because we live in this world right now where more important than ever is to make sure that our money is in a place where we have control of it, where it's got a natural inflation protection in it, where it creates cash flow, because our biggest need in life financially is having more cash flow and being able to access and use our money. And so anyway, I hope that helps. I hope it makes sense. I hope it adds value. It makes gives clarity to what you want to be doing in your financial life. If you have any questions at all, go ahead and comment down in the comment section below. Happy to engage with you in any way possible. If you haven't already, obviously YouTube loves it when you guys hit that like button. So if you found value in this, I would love it and appreciate it greatly if you do hit that like button. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell. That way you get notified every single time I launch a new video. And I hope this video finds you well. Have a blessed and inspirational day. We'll see you on the next video. Take care.